Very good morning to all of you, my friends. Welcome back. I hope you guys are doing good. So, in the last session, we finished material costing, wherein we discussed how to procure material. Thereafter, we discussed what will be the value of material that we will record in books of accounts. Thereafter, we discussed inventory control techniques, valuation of material issues, etc., etc. I hope you guys have solved all the questions of study material and past practice manual. So now let's start with again important chapter from examination point of view, one of the major element of cost, that is overheads. When talking about the weightage of this chapter, the weightage is 4 to 6 marks. So let's start. Good morning, everyone. Now let's start. Now, what's the major object of cost? Costing. The point is to calculate the total cost. Now, when talking about total cost, it can be classified in two parts, that is direct cost and indirect cost. So the total cost can be classified in two parts, that is direct cost and indirect cost. Mr. Satya Lakshmi Sai Kumar will see if I have some time in today's session, then we'll surely discuss. I think there are doubts in illustration number 8 of material costing. Let me check. Mr. Ishan and Mr. Satya Lakshmi. Anyways, so when talking about total cost, it can be classified in two parts, that is direct cost and indirect cost. When talking about what is direct cost, the cost that is directly attributable in manufacturing a product is direct cost. What is direct cost? The cost that is directly attributable in manufacturing a product is direct cost. When talking about indirect cost, this cost play a supporting role in manufacturing a product. This cost play a supporting role in manufacturing of product. Now, direct cost can be direct material, direct labor, and direct expenses. When talking about indirect cost also, it can be indirect material, indirect labor, and indirect expenses. Very good morning. So direct cost, the cost that is directly attributable in manufacturing a product, and indirect cost, the cost that play a supporting role in manufacturing a product. Direct cost can be direct material, direct labor, and direct expenses. And indirect cost can be indirect material, indirect labor, and indirect expenses. Now guys, let me discuss what's the difference between direct and indirect material. Let me discuss this with the help of an example. Let's say I'm into business. I'm having a bakery. Now I do manufacture cake. Now this cake is made up of flour, yeast, egg, cocoa powder, chocolate, whipped cream, etc., etc. So all this is what direct material. These are the direct ingredients in manufacturing my final product, that is cake. Now to maintain the hygiene standard, my staff uses this hand gloves, aprons, and caps. Again, this apron, caps, hand gloves are nowhere present in the final product, but yes, to maintain the hygiene standard, I have to use. So that is indirect material in manufacturing a cake. Another example, guys. Another example, guys. Let's say I'm the manufacturer of wooden furniture. Now this wooden furniture is made up of wood. So this wood is what my direct material. Now to paste the wood or to manufacture a furniture, we use some sort of glue or tape. So this glue or tape, we can call it as indirect material. Another example, let's say I'm the manufacturer of shirt. The shirt is made up of fabric. So fabric is my direct material. Now these very fabrics, shirts are stitched in machines, and for the smooth functioning of machine, we use this oil or lubricating oil or grease. So this lubricating oil or grease is nowhere present in my final product. So that is what we call as indirect material. So this indirect material play a supporting role in manufacturing a product. Now, when talking about the difference in direct and indirect labor, let's say I'm the manufacturer of shirts. Now, I have kept, let's say 150 staff to stitch the shirt. So whatever the amount, whatever the wages paid to these tailors whom I have appointed is what my direct labor. Now, to supervise the work done by this 150 labor force or workforce, I have kept 10 supervisors. These supervisors are nowhere directly involved in manufacturing a product, but yes, I do need supervisors to supervise the work done by these 150 workers. So the amount paid to supervisor for supervising my workforce is indirect labor. Another example, let's say I have kept a gatekeeper. Again, gatekeeper जो है is nowhere directly involved in manufacturing a product. But yes, I do need a gatekeeper to make sure that there is no unauthorized access to my premises. So the salary or the wages paid to my gatekeeper is what my indirect labor. When talking about the difference in direct and indirect expenses, let me discuss this with the help of an example. When talking about direct expenses, let's say I'm a manufacturer of mobile. I'm a manufacturer of mobile phone. Now I'm developing a special kind of mobile phone which does not consume power. It is charged. I have installed a solar panel और वो solar energy से charge होता है. And I do get this technology support from a Japan-based company. And for every unit manufactured, I have to pay him certain fees, technical fees or know-how fees. So this technical fees or know-how fees is what? My direct expenses. Apart from this, we can say amortization of mold, dies, etc. is direct expenses. When talking about indirect expenses, there is a long list: rent, depreciation, electricity, audit fees, etc., is covered in indirect expenses. Now, I hope this part is clear to all. If you guys have any doubts in this part, you guys can please post your queries. Let me give you a sum up once again. We are starting with overheads. The weightage of this chapter is 4 to 6 marks. When talking about the total cost of a product, it can be classified in two parts: direct cost, indirect cost. The direct cost is what? The cost that is directly attributable in manufacturing a product is direct cost. When talking about indirect cost, this play a supporting role in manufacturing a product. If you guys have any doubts in this part, you guys can please post your queries. And further, I request you guys to please copy this explanation. Further, you can write the examples of direct and indirect material, direct and indirect labor, what I have mentioned. So please, giving you 2 minutes time. Manish sir, admin sir, the board is visible, na? The letters are all visible, na? Okay. I request Mr. Abhay, I request to Mr. Abhay that please refresh your internet connection. Vaishali also, please refresh your internet connection. Miss Noor, expenses directly related with production is direct expenses and other expenses are indirect expenses. Yes, Miss Noor. Yes, Darshan. I think you have joined a bit late, Komal. Uh, Syed Yasir Ahmed, I request you to please refresh your internet connection. Ms. Komal Prajapati, I have started with this chapter, new chapter, that is overheads. When talking about the total cost of a product, it can be classified in two parts, direct and indirect cost. The cost that is directly attributable in manufacturing a product is direct cost. And when talking about indirect cost, this cost play a supporting role in manufacturing a product. Further, direct and indirect cost covers direct and indirect material, labor, and expenses. As far as the difference is concerned, I've already discussed with the help of few examples. So guys, now in this chapter, we'll be discussing only about indirect cost. In this chapter, we'll be discussing only about indirect cost and what is overhead, the indirect cost that is incurred in manufacturing a product. So when talking about what is overhead, the indirect cost that is incurred in manufacturing a product. So now let's start. So when talking about overheads, what is overheads? The indirect cost that is incurred in manufacturing a product. Indirect cost can be indirect material, indirect labor, and indirect expenses. Now, this indirect material, indirect labor, and indirect expenses can be incurred at three stages. These are incurred at three stages: at factory level, at office and administration level, and selling and distribution level. So what I want to say is ये जो हमारी indirect cost है ये three stages पे incur होती है. At factory level, at office and administration level, Manish sir, a few students are facing visibility issues. I think, I mean, the screen is visible, na? Hanji sir, please check now. Can you please keep the session on hold for a minute? Welcome back, guys. Sorry for this break. I hope my screen is visible to all. I hope the letters are visible to all. Further, I request you guys to please view my sessions over laptop because again, since I'm using board, so I request you guys to please use laptop for viewing my lectures. I hope it is visible to all. Aisha Jha, I request you to please use laptop. Other students also, I request you guys to please use laptops. I hope it is visible to all. So now, when talking about overheads, these are incurred at three levels, that is factory level, office and administration level, and selling and distribution level. I'll write few examples for your reference. When talking about factory level, the overheads that are incurred at factory level, it can be depreciation on machinery, rent of factory building, repairs and maintenance on machinery, we can say further indirect wages if it is given, then indirect wages. When talking about the indirect costs that are incurred at office and administration level, it can be salary paid to accountants. Thereafter, we can say audit fees, postage and telegram. We can say depreciation on office furniture. When talking about the indirect costs that can be incurred at selling and distribution level, it is advertisement cost, uh, salesman commission, depreciation on delivery vans, etc. So I request you guys to please copy this explanation. Thereafter, we'll start with the chapter. This is all what about meaning of overheads and what all is covered in overheads. Yes, Subhashri. Heating and lighting comes under indirect cost at factory level. Now, before starting with the remaining part of chapter, let me give you a brief about what all we'll be discussing in this chapter. Depreciation on delivery vans or delivery vehicles. Now, when talking about what all we'll be discussing in this chapter, the first part, what we have already discussed, is meaning of overheads. Thereafter, we'll be starting with distribution and absorption of overheads. Thereafter, we will discuss meaning and treatment of under oblique over absorption of overheads. Thereafter, we'll discuss few questions on calculation of machine hour rate and few miscellaneous problems. This part we have already discussed, that is what is the meaning of overhead. Krishna Bragoria, when talking about selling and distribution में depreciation on delivery vans लिखा था मैंने. Electricity bills and spare part, if the electricity bill is related to factory premise, then yes, it will form part of factory overheads. And spare parts, again, the part of factory overheads. Power is covered under factory overheads. Mahesh, whatever the cost that is incurred apart from direct material, direct labor and direct expenses, we call them as overheads. Yes, fuels and electricity charges are indirect expenses, and it can be incurred at factory level, office level and selling and distribution level. So it is overheads only, Miss Bhumika. Okay, see, whatever the expenditures that are incurred apart from material, labor and direct expenses will be termed as overhead. So Karthik, in this business, if you are incurring any sort of expenditures in the form of postage, telegram, etc., will be classified under office and administration overhead. In this part, what you are saying about postage and telegram, it is classified in office and administration overheads. So now let's start with the next part of the chapter, that is distribution and absorption of overheads. Thank you so much, Keshav. So when talking about distribution and absorption of overhead, there are various stages. When talking about the entire process starts from estimation of overheads. There are various levels for distribution and absorption of overhead. The process starts from estimation of overheads. Now, these overheads are estimated by management. From examination point of view or from practical question point of view, this information will always be given in the question. आपको कोई exercise नहीं करना है overheads estimate करने का. This information will always be given in the question. Now, once the overheads are estimated, the distribution process starts. The first step of distribution is allocation of overheads. After allocation, we do apportionment of overheads. After allocation and apportionment, we do reapportion the overheads of service department to the production department. Why we are doing so, I'll be discussing this. So don't worry, guys. After allocation and apportionment of overhead, we do reapportionment of overheads of service department to production department. So after estimation, the distribution process starts, wherein first we allocate the overhead. Thereafter, if allocation is not possible, we will apportion the overheads. And once the overheads are apportioned, we will reapportion the overheads, reapportionment of overheads of service department to the production department. So all these are three stages of distribution of overhead. And once the overheads are distributed, we will absorb the overhead. So herein the concept of absorption comes into the picture. So these are the various levels or stages of distribution and absorption of overhead. That is estimation of overhead. This information will always be given in the question that what all overheads are incurred. Thereafter allocation, apportionment, reapportionment of overheads, and then last is absorption. So we'll be discussing these points one by one. I request you guys to please copy this part. I'll be discussing this part, Kiran and Darshan. Don't worry. I have to discuss everything, that is what is allocation, what is apportionment, what is reapportionment, why we are doing so, thereafter what is absorption and what is the use of absorption. Don't worry, guys. So now let's start with first the distribution of overhead. Now guys, let me discuss this concept with the help of an example, that why distribution is important, what is the need of distribution of overheads. Now let's say I am into garments business and I have two production department, wherein department one manufactures men's wear and the second one manufactures women's wear. I have two production department, wherein production department first manufactures men's wear and second manufactures women's wear. Now, when talking about the material cost, the material cost is incurred separately for men's wear and women's wear. We can easily identify कि ये material men's wear में use हो रहा है और ये material women's wear में use हो रहा है. So this cost is incurred separately for the material cost is incurred separately for men's wear and women's wear. When talking about labor also, again, I have a separate team to stitch men's wear and I have a separate team to stitch women's wear. So again, I can easily identify that how much wages I am paying for production department first and how much wages I am paying for production department second, because I have a separate set of skilled workers to stitch men's wear and women's wear. Further, when talking about direct expenses also, these expenses are incurred separately. Now, my point is this the total cost of the product? I repeat again, guys, my point is this the total cost of the product? No. Apart from these three costs, that is material, labor, and expenses, again, there are n number of expenditures which are incurred as a whole that we call as overheads. Let's say there are again n number of expenditure, let's say rent, depreciation, electricity, postage, audit fees, supervisor salary. So there are n number of expenditures which are incurred as a whole. So to calculate the total cost of these products, what we have to do? We have to charge these costs. We call them as overheads. We have to charge these overheads to these two products to calculate the total cost of these products. I repeat again, is this the total cost, guys? No, this is not the total cost. Apart from this cost, there are many other costs that are incurred as a whole. We call them as overheads. And to calculate the total cost, we need to charge these overheads to these two products to calculate the total cost. So how to do this? Again, what we have to do, we have to first distribute the overheads and thereafter we will charge the overheads to a particular product or a particular job to calculate the total cost of a product or a job, whatever it is. So when talking about how to charge, we have to distribute the overheads among the various production departments. So that is the need of distribution. If you guys have any doubts in this part, you guys can please post your queries. There is a query from Keshav Goyal. Sir, if the labor is same for men and women in the shift, again we can easily identify, Keshav, कि हमने men's wear के लिए कितना wages pay किया है और women's wear के लिए कितना wages pay किया है. See, material, labor and direct expenses can be easily identified. How much we are incurring for men's wear and how much we are incurring for women's wear. But the point is, what about rent? Suppose, let's say we have taken a premise on rent and the rent is 1 lakh. How to charge the rent on these two products to calculate the total cost? That is all what we'll be discussing in distribution of overheads. Okay, Vaishali Bindal, freight outwards is an indirect expenses and it is incurred at selling and distribution level. So I hope you guys now understand. I mean, I hope you guys are aware about that. What is the need of distribution? What is the use of distribution? Now let's start with distribution of overheads. When talking about distribution of overheads, it can be either allocation of overheads or apportionment of overheads. When talking about distribution of overhead, it can be either allocation of overheads or apportionment of overheads. When talking about allocation of overheads, when the overheads are incurred separately for when the overheads are incurred separately and can be directly distributed. It is allocation. I repeat again, when the overheads are incurred separately for each production department. Separately for each production department and can be distributed directly. It is allocation. But what about apportionment when the overheads are incurred as a whole? When the overheads are not incurred separately, then we need to identify the basis of apportionment. We need to identify the basis of apportionment and then we apportion the overhead. So when the overheads are not incurred separately, then what we have to do, we have to identify the basis of apportionment and thereafter we apportion the overhead. Now, let me discuss this difference of allocation and apportionment with the help of an example. Let me cover this part separately, Mr. Soumya Kant. Don't worry, I'll be covering this part also. So when talking about allocation, I repeat again, guys, when the overheads are incurred separately for each production department and can be distributed directly, we call it as allocation of overheads. And when talking about apportionment, when the overheads are not incurred separately, but they are incurred as a whole, then what we have to do, we can't allocate the overheads. Then we have to apportion the overheads. How to apportion the overheads? Very simple. We have to identify the basis of apportionment and thereafter we will apportion the overheads. So let me discuss this with the help of an example. Let me discuss this with the help of an example. Let's say I'm into manufacturing business and I do manufacture garments, wherein I do manufacture men's wear and women's wear. Now, there are few overheads that are incurred. Let's say I have paid supervisor salary, that is 5,000 rupees at the rate. Sorry, I am paying supervisor salary to 10 supervisors at the rate 5,000 per person. So in paying 50,000 as supervisor salary. Further, let's say again few more overheads. Let's say electricity is given or say rent is given. Let's say I'm paying a rent of rupees 2 lakh. Further, let's say the information is given as regards electricity bill, or we can say power or electricity, whatever it is. Let's say the power cost is 1 lakh rupees. I repeat again, when talking about material, labor and direct expenses, they are incurred separately for every product or production department. But the point is, the matter of concern is about the costs that are incurred as a whole, what we call them as overheads. So we have to distribute the overheads first, and thereafter we can charge the overheads to a particular product or to a particular job to calculate the total cost. So guys, let's start with the distribution process. So let's say we have incurred three overheads. That is, first one is supervisor salary 50,000, rent is given, that is 2 lakh, and the power cost is given, that is 1 lakh. Now guys, when talking about allocation, let's say the information is given in the question that out of 10 supervisors, 4 supervisors are appointed for the women's division and 6 supervisors are appointed for the men's division. I repeat again, the information is given in the question. The first information that is given in the question, that 4 supervisors are appointed for women's wear division and remaining for men's wear. This information is given in the question कि total 10 supervisors है हमारी फैक्ट्री में जो कि हमने अपॉइंट किए हैं, उसमें से 4 supervisors are supervising the work done by the workers in women's division and the remaining for the men's division. So herein we can easily distribute the overheads because क्वेश्चन में क्लियरली लिखा है कि आउट ऑफ 10 सुपरवाइजर्स 4 सुपरवाइजर्स जो हैं इस डिवीजन को बिलोंग करते हैं एंड 6 सुपरवाइजर्स जो हैं वो इस डिवीजन को बिलोंग करते हैं. तो वेरी सिंपल, वी कैन इजीली डिस्ट्रीब्यूट 4 supervisors into 5,000. So 20,000 will go to women's wear division and the remaining 6 supervisors, that is 6 into 5,000, 30,000 will go to men's division. So herein what we can see that these overheads are incurred separately for every department or every division. So they can be distributed directly. So this is an example of allocation. Another example, let's say when talking about the rent, let's say the information is given in the question. Let's say when talking about rent, let's say information is given in the question that we have taken 2 premises on hire. I repeat again, we have taken 2 premises on hire. The rent of premise 1 is 1,20,000 that is used for men's wear division, and the rent of 80,000 we are paying for the second premise that is used for women's wear division. I repeat again, guys, the total rent we are paying is 2 lakh. Further, the information is given in the question that we have taken 2 premises on hire and the rent of premise 1 is 1,20,000 that is used for men's division. So here only also we can easily distribute this cost because premise 1 is used only for men's division and the rent is 1,20,000, so we can distribute it directly. And again, for the rent of premise 2 is 80,000 and it is used for women's wear division. So herein we will charge this to women's division. So herein also the expenses are incurred separately and they can be distributed directly. So that is allocation. When talking about power cost, let's say the separate meters are installed in both the premises. I repeat again, question में दिया गया है कि दोनों premises के उनके separate meter हैं and the rent of the power consumption of premise 1 is rupees 70,000. It is given in the question that first premise का power bill जो आया है हमारा 70,000 का आया है और second premise का power bill जो है सिर्फ 30,000 आया है. So herein also, since the information is given in the question that information is given in the question that the expenses are incurred separately for every production department, therefore we distributed it directly. That is what we call as allocation. If you guys have any doubts in allocation, what is allocation, you guys can please post your queries. When talking about allocation, guys, आपको इंफॉर्मेशन दिया गया होगा क्वेश्चन में कि दिस मच एक्सपेंडिचर इज इनकर्ड फॉर दिस प्रोडक्शन डिपार्टमेंट एंड दिस मच एक्सपेंडिचर इज इनकर्ड फॉर दिस प्रोडक्शन डिपार्टमेंट. So nothing to worry, guys. We can simply distribute it directly. That is what we call as allocation. When the overheads are incurred separately for each production department and can be distributed directly, it is what we call as allocation. If you guys have any doubts in allocation part, you guys can please post your queries. Waiting for your queries, guys. Waiting for your queries, guys. Don't worry, I'll be coming up with this problem, Keshav. Soumyakant, Noor, any doubts? Bhumika, Vaishali, Rushita Sharma, Keshav Goyal, Anupam, Farah Sayyed, Arya, Kiran Shukla, Jaydev Singh, any doubts? Karthik, any doubts? Jagat Babu Sharma, any doubts? Krishna, Chanchal, Subhashri, Harshita. Yes, when the overheads are incurred separately for every production department or every product, then we call it as, then we distribute the overhead and that process is known as allocation. Because allocation में आपको clearly given होगा information कि this much is incurred for this department and this much is incurred for this department. I request you guys to please copy this part. No worries, Syed. Now let's say supervisor salary we are paying 50,000. The rent we are paying 2 lakh rupees and the power cost is 1 lakh. Now, further the additional information is given in the question as regards as regards the area in square feet, horsepower, and let's say the number of workers. Now, no information is given in the question as regards कि men's wear के लिए कितना incur हुआ, women's wear के लिए कितना incur हुआ. These expenditures are incurred as a whole. No information is given that how many supervisors are appointed for men's wear, how many supervisors are appointed for women's wear. When talking about rent, we have not taken two premises on hire. Only one premise we have taken on rent. And the rent we are paying is 2 lakh. I repeat again, we have taken only one premise on rent. We have taken only one premise on rent, and the rent of that premise is 2 lakh. Further, there are no separate meters involved for the production department. There is only 1 meter installed for power. So that is, and the total bill generated is 1 lakh rupees. Now the point is how to distribute the cost, because pehle question mein the premises were separate, so we can easily identify the rent. The power generation, that is the electricity meter was separate, so we can easily distribute the overheads. As far as supervisor is concerned, it is given in the question that this much supervisors are appointed for men's wear, this much supervisors are appointed for women's wear. So in the previous question, this information was given. So we हम लोगों ने क्या किया, easily allocate कर दिया. We distributed it directly, and that is what we call as allocation. But now in this case, no information is given in the question. Further, we have not taken two premises on rent. We have taken only one premise on rent. Again, power का जो meter है वो भी एक ही है. Again, we have appointed common supervisors for the factory. Let's say if I have appointed 10 supervisors also, they are supervising the work done by men's wear also, the workers of men's wear also, and the workers of women's wear also. Now the point is how to distribute the overheads. So herein the concept of apportionment comes into the picture. And when talking about apportionment, we have to identify the basis of apportionment, and thereafter we will apportion the overhead. So guys, very important point, do make a note of it, that if the overheads cannot be allocated, we have to apportion the overhead. Now, how to apportion the overheads? We have to first identify the basis of apportionment, and then we will apportion the overheads. So when talking about identify the basis of apportionment, you have to use your brain, and you have to identify that on what basis we can distribute the overheads. So when talking about the first part, supervisor salary, we are paying 60,000. Let's say I have appointed 10 supervisors, and every supervisor I am paying 6,000 rupees, and these are the common supervisors for men's divisions also and women's divisions also. Now the point is how to distribute this supervisor salary. So now this additional information is given in the question as regards area, horsepower, and number of workers. So when talking about supervisor salary has nothing to do with area. Area से supervisor salary का कोई भी लेना देना नहीं है. When talking about horsepower of machinery also, it has nothing to do with supervisor salary. What supervisor do? He supervises the work done by the workforce or laborers. So herein the information is given as regards the number of workers. That is, there are total 20 staff who are working in men's wear, and let's say 10 staff are working in women's wear division. So now we have to identify that on what basis the supervisor salary will be apportioned. Very simple, guys. Supervisor supervise the work done by the workers. So herein we can say that supervisor salary can be distributed on the basis of number of workers. Total 20 workers men's wear में है, 10 workers women's wear में है. So we will distribute the salary on the basis of workers because supervisor किसको supervise करता है? Workers को supervise करता है. So herein when talking about the supervisor salary, it will be distributed in the ratio of number of workers, that is 2:1. So this will be 40,000 and 20,000. The supervisor salary is apportioned on the basis of number of workers. When talking about rent हम लोग किसका पे करते हैं? एरिया का. Herein the information is given in the question as regards area that 550 square feet is used for men's wear and for women's wear 450 square feet of area is used. So we can easily distribute the rent in the ratio of area in square feet. So 55:45 will be the basis of distribution. So this will be 1,10,000 and 90,000. When talking about the power cost, that is 1 lakh, it is more or less dependent upon horsepower of machinery. So herein when talking about horsepower, it is given that 60 and 40 is the ratio of distribution. So 60:40. So this will be 60,000 and 40,000. So I hope you guys are now thorough with that. What is the difference between allocation and apportionment? So allocation, the distribution process starts from allocation of overheads, wherein if the overheads are incurred separately for the two departments or more than two departments, then we will allocate the overhead. We can distribute it directly, we will allocate the overheads. But very important, if the overheads cannot be allocated, अगर हम लोग overheads allocate नहीं कर सकते, then we will apportion the overhead. How to apportion the overhead? We have to first identify कि किस basis पे apportion करें, and we will use that ratio to distribute the overheads. So this is the question for apportionment, and the previous question was for allocation. If you guys have any doubts, in this part, any conceptual queries, you guys can please post your query. Now I request you guys to please copy this explanation and thereafter this solution. So again, for the students, again for all of you guys, first step is allocate. If the overheads are incurred separately for every production department, then we will allocate the overheads. But agar allocation possible nahi hai, what we have to do? We have to apportion the overhead. How to apportion? We have to first identify the basis of apportionment, and then we will distribute the overheads. So if you guys have any queries in this part, you guys can please post your query. Waiting for your queries, guys. And in the meanwhile, I request you guys to please copy. Puneet Yadav, can you be please more clear what exactly you're asking? I'm not getting. I have explained what is the difference between allocation and apportionment and what is the need of distribution. Still, if you have any query, Puneet, you can please post your query. See, Subhashri, much depends upon the question, what is given in the question. We have to see what all information is given in the question. But see, the first point starts that if we can allocate the overhead, better allocate it. If allocation is not possible, then we will apportion the overhead. For apportionment, we have to identify the basis of apportionment and then distribute the overheads. Any doubts? Very good, Soumyakant. Any doubts? Vishal, Arya, Chanchal, Rajiv Kumar, Harshita, Jagat Babu, Syed Yasir Ahmed, Noor, Kiran Shukla. Yes, we can say Anupam. Yeah, sometimes Puneet. I request in the meantime, those who have copied, please, I request you guys to please open the study material practical questions. Power cost is to be distributed in the ratio of 60 to 40. So 60,000 and 40,000. Rahul Jain, Mr. Abhay, any doubts? Abhay, Sudhanshu, Anupam, Karthik, Jaydev Singh, Sankaran, any doubts? I'll be discussing this part also, Harshita. Don't worry. No worries, Rahul. Mr. Abhay, Sudhanshu, Anupam, Komal, any doubts? Puneet, I hope the board is visible to you, Abhay. Harshita, what about the expenses that are borne by service department? I'll be discussing this concept separately. Don't worry. I request you guys to please open your study material. We are discussing one question from study material. Okay, before starting a question, let me give you a few examples on what is the basis of apportionment. Let me discuss few examples on overheads and basis of apportionment. When talking about if information is given as regards rent, it is to be apportioned on the basis of area. When talking about depreciation on machinery, it is to be distributed on the basis of value of machine. If in question electricity is given or power cost is given. Now guys, when talking about electricity or power, if the information is given as regards light points or horsepower, then we have to use this as the basis of apportionment. But no information is given as regards light points or horsepower, then yes, in some cases, electricity can be distributed on the basis of area also. When talking about maintenance, if the information is given as regards maintenance cost, then it can be distributed on the basis of machine hours. Further, if any information is given as regards indirect wages, it is to be distributed in the ratio of direct wages. Further, if any information is given as regards material handling, then we will distributing the base on the basis of number of material requisition. So these are the few examples wherein these overheads are distributed on the basis of these bases. Further, if any information is given as regards sundry expenses or other expenses, it is advisable to distribute these in the base on the basis of labor hours. Sundries or other expenses, then it is to be distributed on the basis of labor hours. If no other basis, अगर कोई बेसिस आपको समझ में नहीं आ रहा है कि इसका क्या बेसिस होगा, then the best way is to distribute the overheads on the basis of labor hours. I'll be discussing this part, but let me discuss the full-fledged question on distribution of overhead, that is allocation or apportionment. Soumyakant. I request you guys to please open your study material. I'm discussing practical question number. I'm discussing practical question number 2, guys. I'll be discussing only the first part of practical question number 2. The second part will be discussing it separately. I request you guys to please open your study material. Yes, we can say Harshita. Miss Bhumika, please correct your statement. What will be the basis for apportionment, not allocation? Because allocation is done when the overheads are incurred directly. तो उसमें कोई basis की जरूरत ही नहीं है. When talking about the store's cost, it can be distributed on the basis of number of requisition. I'll be explaining this question and I'll be showing you how to present it in exam. Don't worry, Darshan. So let's start with practical question number 2. So Modern Manufacture Limited has 3 production department P1, P2, P3 and 2 service department S1 and S2, pertaining to which are as under: direct wages are given, working hours are given, value of machinery is given, horsepower of machinery is given, light points is given. Further, the floor space is also given. The following are the figure extracted from the accounting records are relevant. That is rent and rates, general lighting, indirect wages, power, depreciation on machineries and sundries. ये जो next part है, that is service department का apportionment का distribution का, you guys have to ignore. So we have to first simply do the primary distribution, that is allocation and apportionment of overhead. Please skip the second part, that is the expenses of service department are allocated as under. I'll be discussing this part separately. I'm just discussing the first part, that is how to distribute the overheads. So discussing practical question number 2 from study material. The page number is 4.63, practical question number 2. Now, guys, when talking about direct wages for the production department will form part of prime cost. But whatever the direct wages that are incurred in the service department will be treated as overheads. I'll be discussing this concept in detail, so don't worry, guys. I repeat again, when talking about overheads of service department, direct wages and direct material will form part of overheads. So guys, I'll be discussing this concept separately. So I repeat again, when talking about direct wages of service department and direct material of service department, it will form part of overheads. Why? I'll be discussing this concept separately. Don't worry, guys. Now let's start with the overheads. Rent is given, that is 5,000. General lighting is given. That is 600. Indirect wages is given. That is 1939. Power cost is given. That is 1500. Depreciation is given on machinery, that is 10,000. And sundries are given. And that is 9695. Now no information is given in the question कि इस department के लिए इतना incur हुआ, इस department के लिए इतना incur हुआ. So we can't allocate the overheads. Allocation is not possible because no information is given that following are the overheads that are incurred separately for each department. So now, since the overheads cannot be allocated, we have to apportion the overheads. And for apportionment, we have to first identify the basis of apportionment and then we will distribute the overheads. So let's start with the first point, that is rent and rates. Now, rent is more or less dependent upon the area, that is floor area or area in square feet. So herein the information is given as regards floor space. So when talking about the basis of apportionment of rent, we will be using floor space as the basis of apportionment. When talking about floor space, it is given in the question that 2,000, 2,500, 3,000, 2,000 and 500. So this will be the ratio for distribution. So we'll distribute 5,000 in the ratio of 2 is to 2.5, sorry, 20 is to 25 is to 30 is to 20 is to 5. 2,000 plus 2,500 plus 3,000. So this will be 1,000. This will be 1,250. This will be 1,500. This will be 1,000 and 250. When talking about general lighting, the information is given in the question as regards light point. So this will be the basis of apportionment of general lighting. So we will distribute it on the basis of light points. Herein the ratio will be 10 is to 15 is to 20 is to 10 is to 5. So this will be 25, 50, 60. 60. So this will be 100, 150, When talking about indirect wages, it will be distributed in the ratio of direct wages. When talking about the ratio, it will be distributed in the ratio of 3000 is to 2000 is to 3000 is to 1500 is to 195. So 3 plus 2, 5000 plus 3000 plus 1500 plus 195. 695. So this will be 600. This will be 400, 600, 300. This will be 13. Further, when talking about the power cost, here in the horsepower of machinery is given in the question. When talking about the power cost, the horsepower of machine is given in the question. So I request you guys to please complete the solution, giving you 4 to 5 minutes time. I request you guys to please complete the solution. Please complete the solution, guys. When talking about horsepower, power cost, it will be distributed in the ratio of horsepower of machinery. When talking about depreciation, it will be distributed on the basis of value of machine. And when talking about sundries, as I told you guys, कुछ भी समझ में नहीं आ रहा है, तो better distribute in the ratio of labor hours. So herein the labor hours are given. Labor hours or direct wages, the priority is to be given to. Herein in this question, direct wages are also given. So we'll distribute these overheads in the ratio of direct wages. But alternatively, we can distribute in the ratio of labor hours also. I request you guys to please complete the distribution. I'll be discussing this part a bit. Keshav Goyal, the page number is 4.63. I'm discussing practical question number 2. Sir, why we are not taking direct wages of the production department at the time of distribution? I'll be discussing this query in the next session. Don't worry. Miss Krishna Bagoria sir, ये amount कैसे निकाले हैं? So Krishna, when talking about rent, my rent paid is 5,000. My rent paid is 5,000. Now it is to be distributed in 3 production department P1, P2, P3 and 2 service department S1 and S2. Now the rent is distributed in the ratio of area or floor space, and the total floor space available is 2,000 plus 2,500 plus 3,000 plus 2,000 plus 500. That is 10,000 square feet. So the total area is how much? 10,000 square feet. Now production department 1 area is how much? 2,000 square feet. So 5,000 into 2,000 divided by 10,000. Similarly, for production department 2, the area is how much? Again, the area is 2,500. So into 2,500 divided by 10,000. So I'm using ratios to distribute the overheads. For production department 3, the area is 3,000. So total 5,000 need to be distributed. 10,000 is the total area into the area that belongs to production department. P3 is 3,000. And similarly, 5,000 into the area that is used by service department S1 is 2,000. So this is the way I calculated these amount, that is 1,000, 1,250, 1,500, 1,000 and 250. Okay, the next part is Karthik sir, a query regarding why indirect wages are apportioned on the basis of direct wages. See, this is the best approach to distribute indirect wages. In general, also indirect wages are paid on the basis of direct wages. So this is the best approach to distribute indirect wages. Sir, can we use direct labor hour also for indirect wages? No. Darshan, the indirect wages will always be distributed on the basis of direct wages. Okay, Mr. Sundar, the alternate solution is possible. Sundries can be distributed on the basis of labor hour also. Don't worry. It is the same Keshav. केशव गोयल सर, ये डायरेक्ट लेबर कॉस्ट और डायरेक्ट वेजेस में क्या डिफरेंस है? इट्स सेम. डायरेक्ट वेजेस एंड डायरेक्ट लेबर कॉस्ट इज सेम ओनली. Thank you, Anupam Tiwari. Thank you so much. So when talking about the power cost, I have got answer from Anupam Tiwari. I hope your answer is correct. 600, 300, 500 and 100. 600, 300, 500 and 100. When talking about the depreciation, it is 2,400, 3,200, 4,000, 200 and 200. And the last is sundries, 323. So my total overheads will be, after distribution will be, my total overheads are 1695, 5000 plus 600 plus 1939 plus 1500 plus 10,000 plus 9695. So this is 32, 3429. This will be 1000 plus 100 plus 600 plus 600 plus 2400 plus 3000. So this is 7700. So guys, this is how the overheads will be distributed. Thank you so much, Anupam. Sudhanshu Shekhar, the alternate solution is possible. It can be distributed on the basis of labor hours also. Thank you, Mr. Syed Yasir Ahmed, Rushita Sharma. Very good, guys. Yes, Keshav, direct wages overheads nahi hota hai, but the direct wages and direct material of service department will be treated as overhead. Why? I'll be discussing this part now. So don't worry, guys. I'll be discussing this part, Abhay. Don't worry. Why we are not taking direct wages of the production department? Don't worry, Abhay. I'll be taking this part now. Krishna Bagoria, hopefully your query is resolved, Krishna. Krishna, hopefully your query is resolved. We are distributing in the ratio of 2000 is to 2500 is to 3000 is to 2000 is to 500. Or we can say alternatively 4 is to 5 is to 6 is to 2 is to 1. One six nine five, how it is calculated? 1500 plus 195. This is how I got 1695. 1500 plus 195. So guys, we are done with the first stage of distribution, that is allocation and apportionment of overheads. This part is over. If you guys have any queries that what is allocation, what is apportionment, you guys can please post your queries. Else I'll start with the next part, that is reapportionment of overheads of service department to the production department. So giving you last 2 minutes time, waiting for your queries, guys. Keshav and Abhay, don't worry, have some patience. I'll be addressing your query. By the end of this session, your query will be resolved. Don't worry. So guys, when talking about material cost, it is incurred separately for a particular product or a production department. When talking about wages and direct expenses also, they are incurred separately for every department. But yes, overheads are incurred as a whole. So that's why we have to distribute the overheads among various production department or service department to calculate the total cost of a product. So we are done with the first part of the distribution, that is allocation or apportionment. When talking about allocation, if the overheads can be directly distributed, it is allocation. If the overheads cannot be distributed directly, then we have to identify the basis of apportionment and then we have to apportion the overhead. So this is all what about the basic distribution or primary distribution of overheads. Now let's start with the next part of distribution, that is reapportionment of overheads of service department to the production department. Yes, Sudhanshu. So now, before starting with reapportionment, let's take a break of 10 minutes because few students need break. So let's take a break of 10 minutes and then we'll be back after this break, after the break, and we'll start with the reapportionment of overheads. So guys, let's take a break of 10 minutes. Sir, Manish sir, Manish sir, are you there? So guys, let's take a break of 10 minutes. We'll be back after 10 minutes. Manish sir, break डाल दिया? Welcome back, guys. So now we are done with allocation and apportionment. So now let's start with reapportionment. Now, before starting with reapportionment, let's discuss why reapportionment. Why to reapportion the overheads of the service department to production department? What is the need of reapportionment? Let's say I have three production department, P1, P2, P3. And I have two service department, S1 and S2. Now, guys, when talking about the manufacturing activity, the manufacturing activity takes place only in the production department. The units are actually manufactured in only in the production department. The service department, in service department no units are manufactured. Service department में कोई units manufacture नहीं होते हैं. They are meant, they are fixed up, they are set up to provide services to the production department. So while calculating the cost of a product, we can easily charge the overheads of the production department to a particular product or to a particular job to calculate the cost, because the actual units are produced in the production department. But in service department, no units are manufactured. So the point is how to charge the overheads of the service department to a particular product to calculate the total cost. So since no units are manufactured, so what we will do is whatever the overheads that are incurred in the service department will be reapportioned to the production department. I repeat again, guys. जो प्रोडक्शन एक्टिविटी होता है या प्रोडक्शन टेक प्लेस, the production take place only in the production department. The units are actually manufactured in production department. So we can easily charge the overheads of the production department to a particular product. But the service department are set up to provide services to the production department. They are not meant for any manufacturing activity or production activity. So the point is how to charge the overheads of service department to a particular product or to a particular job. So herein what we do is, since no units are manufactured in service department, so whatever the overheads that are incurred in the service department will be reapportioned to the production department, and thereafter we will calculate the total overheads of the production department and they will be charged to a particular product or to a particular job to total cost. Let me discuss this concept. Yes, Darshan. Let me discuss this concept practically. Let's say I have a company wherein I have three production departments where the manufacturing activity takes place. Now, let's say I have set up a service department, let's say housekeeping department. Now, क्या housekeeping department में कोई units manufacture हो रहा है? No. But yes, to maintain the cleanliness of the factory, I have to set up housekeeping department. So whatever the overheads, whatever the cost that is incurred in the housing department will be reapportioned to the production department. Let's take one more example. Let's say I have three production department and I have one service department in the name of human resource, HR department. Now, HR department में again कोई units manufacture नहीं होता है. What they do recruit people. They do recruit people for these production department. So herein what HR department is doing, they are providing services to the production department. कोई units manufacture नहीं करते. They are providing services to the production department. Let's say on a particular day in department P1, 10 employees resigned, that we will be leaving the company after a month. So herein the role of HR department comes into the picture. What they will do, they will immediately recruit 10 people and will place in the production department P1. So the service department, HR department again is not directly involved in manufacturing a product. they do provide services to the production department. So whatever the overheads that are allocated or apportioned to the service department will be reapportioned to the production department. Let's say I have one more service department, maintenance department. अगेन मेंटेनेंस डिपार्टमेंट में कोई यूनिट्स मैन्युफैक्चर नहीं होता. अगर कोई प्रोडक्शन डिपार्टमेंट में मशीन ब्रेकडाउन हुआ तो मेंटेनेंस डिपार्टमेंट का रोल आता है पिक्चर में, एंड दे विल फिक्स अप द मशीन, दे विल फिक्स अप द इश्यूज दैट आर देयर, एंड accordingly they will provide services to the production department. So my point is very simple, guys, very simple, that the units are actually manufactured in production department. So हम लोग production department के खर्चे easily charge कर सकते हैं. But since no manufacturing activity take place in the service department, so the point is the service department are providing services to the production department. इसी वजह से उनको setup किया जाता है. So what we will do is we will reapportion the overheads of the service department to the production department, and thereafter we will calculate the total overheads and will charge to a particular product or a job to calculate the total cost. So that is the logic behind reapportionment of overheads. When talking about how to reapportion the overheads, two situations are possible wherein when service department provide services to production department. सर्विस डिपार्टमेंट अगर सिर्फ प्रोडक्शन डिपार्टमेंट को सर्विस प्रोवाइड करता है, एंड द सेकेंड सिचुएशन दैट इज पॉसिबल इज सर्विस डिपार्टमेंट प्रोवाइड सर्विसेज टू प्रोडक्शन डिपार्टमेंट as well as other service department. When talking about reapportionment, two situations are possible, wherein the first situation is service department सिर्फ production department को service provide करता है, and second situation when service department provides services to the production department also and other service department also. Now in this case we will use direct redistribution method. Now in this case again two situations are possible, wherein the first one is reciprocal and second one is non-reciprocal. Now, what is reciprocal and non-reciprocal? Let me discuss this with the help of an example. When talking about reciprocal, let's say I have two production department P1 and P2 and two service department S1 and S2. I'm discussing what is reciprocal approach, wherein let's say I have two production department P1 and P2 and two service department S1 and S2. Now S1 is providing services to P1, P2 and S2 also. Now when talking about S2, S2 is providing services to P1, P2 and S1 also. So here we can see that the service departments are providing services to each other. So herein we call it as reciprocal approach. Now in this case, we can reapportion the overheads by using any of the methods. There are three methods that are given. Three methods we can use. The first one is using simultaneous equation. Second one is repetitive distribution method. And the third one is trial and error method. We can use any of the method. We have to see what all instructions are given in the question. Accordingly, we can use any of the methods. In all these three methods, the answer will be the same. Now, when talking about non-reciprocal method, in what is non-reciprocal? Let me discuss again this with the help of an example. Let's say I have two production department P1 and P2, and I have two service department S1 and S2. I repeat again, I have two production department P1 and P2 and two service department S1 and S2. Now, S1 is providing services to P1, P2 and S2. I repeat again, S1, the service department 1 is providing services to P1, P2 and S2. Now, when talking about S2, it is providing services only to P1 and P2. So that is non-reciprocal method. मतलब S1 S2 को सर्विस प्रोवाइड कर रहा है, मगर S2 जो है सिर्फ प्रोडक्शन डिपार्टमेंट को सर्विस प्रोवाइड कर रहा है. So that is non-reciprocal. Now herein we will be using step ladder method to distribute the overheads of service department. If you guys have any doubts in this part that why reapportionment and what all are the methods we'll be discussing, you guys can please post your queries. There are total 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 methods we will be discussing one by one. Reapportionment की जरूरत इसलिए है क्योंकि सर्विस डिपार्टमेंट में कोई यूनिट्स मैन्युफैक्चर नहीं होते. So how to charge the overheads of the service department to a particular product? So what we will do is, since no units are manufactured in service department, we will redistribute the overheads of the service department to the production department, because service department are set up to provide services to the production department. So that's why we'll redistribute the overheads of service department to the production department. So when talking about the methods of redistribution, two approaches are possible. So when service department provides services only to the production department, we will use direct redistribution method. If they are providing services to each other, then reciprocal and non-reciprocal. If you guys have any doubts in this part, you guys can please post your queries. I've already discussed Anupam. Any doubts, guys? What is reciprocal? What is non-reciprocal? When talking about reciprocal, the service department are providing services to each other. I mean, they are providing services to the production department as well as they are providing services to each other. But when talking about non-reciprocal, if a particular department, let's say there are two service department S1 and S2 and two production department P1 and P2. So if S1 is providing services to P1, P2 and S2, now S2 is providing services only to the production department. They are not providing services to each other. So that is non-reciprocal. Waiting for your queries, guys. Krishna Bakoria, I repeat again, when talking about non-reciprocal, let's say I have three production department P1, P2, P3 and two service department S1 and S2. Now S1, the service department first is providing services to P1, P2, P3 and S2. But S2 is providing services only to P1, P2, P3, not to S1. So here we will use the non-reciprocal approach and we will solve the question using step ladder method. Soumyakant, hopefully your query is resolved. Anupam, Krishna. नो दर्शन, इट कैन बी डिफरेंट ऑल्सो. जरूरी नहीं है कि ये एकदम सेम सर्विसेज प्रोवाइड करे. इट कैन बी डिफरेंट ऑल्सो in terms of value. Waiting for your queries, guys. Any doubts? Komal, Keshav, Sudhanshu, Bhumika, Rushita, Syed Yasir, Karthik, any doubts? So guys, let's start with this first method, that is direct redistribution method. I'll be discussing a question of study material. So I request you guys to please open your study material. I'm discussing illustration number 1, page number 4.17, guys. I'm discussing illustration number 1, page number 4.17, guys. So Excel Limited has 3 production department and 4 service department. The expenses for these department as per primary distribution summary are as follow. मतलब इन लोगों ने primary distribution कर दिया. Primary distribution means what? Allocation or apportionment. So they are done with allocation or apportionment, wherein the overheads distributed to department A, B, C and service department, that is stores, timekeeping, power and canteen, is given. Further, the information is given in the question as regards horsepower of machinery, number of workers, value of stores requisition. Prepare a statement apportioning the cost of service department over production department using direct redistribution method. So let's start with illustration number 1. There are 3 production department A, B, and C. So we will distribute the overheads of service department to the production department. So there are 4 service department. But before this, we will write overheads as per primary distribution. So total 80 lakh for all 3. That is 30, 26 and 24. Now we'll distribute the overheads of service department one by one. When talking about stores department, the total overheads that are apportioned or allocated to stores department is 4 lakh. Now we'll identify the basis of apportionment. When talking about stores department, the overheads of the stores department will be distributed on the basis of value of stores requisition. So when talking about the basis, it will be value of stores requisition. So here in the stores requisition value is 2 lakh 50, 150 and 1. So 2 plus 1, 3, 4, 5. 5 lakh. So this will be 2 lakh. This will be 1,20,000 and this will be 80,000. The next service department is timekeeping and accounts. The total overheads are 3 lakh. Now the most appropriate basis of apportionment, the most appropriate basis of distribution of timekeeping and accounts is number of workers. So we'll distribute in the ratio of number of workers. That is 50, total 50 workers are there. Thereafter power, the cost is total 1,60,000. It will be distributed in the ratio of horsepower of machinery, and that is given 300, 300 and 200. So this will be 60, 60 and 40. And then last is canteen. Again, the canteen cost will be distributed on the basis of number of workers. This is the most appropriate basis of distribution. And the total cost of the canteen is 1 lakh. When talking about the number of workers, total. This will be 40, 30. So this is how we will calculate the total overheads of the production department. If you guys have any doubts or queries in this part, you guys can please post your query. Waiting for your queries, guys. I request you guys to please copy this part. This is the way you have to present the solution in exams. Any doubts, Bhumika, Komal? Mr. Sundar, Krishna, Anupam? Anupam Tiwari, overheads as per primary distribution means direct expenses. No, Anupam. Overheads as per primary distribution means overheads after allocation or apportionment. So primary distribution means overheads after allocation or apportionment. Yes, Darshan. Mrs. Smita, yes, if the time permits, then we'll for sure. It's already 9:27, guys. So I hope you guys are thorough with what I have discussed in this session. We started with the meaning of overheads, that is what is overheads, what is direct cost, what is indirect cost. Thereafter, we started with distribution and absorption of overhead, wherein I discussed that there are various stages of distribution and absorption of overhead. When talking about distribution, it can be either allocation or apportionment. When talking about allocation, if the overheads can be distributed directly, that is allocation. If not, then yes, we have to apportion the overheads by identifying a basis of apportionment. We have to identify the basis of apportionment and then we have to apportion the overheads. Once the overheads are allocated or apportioned, thereafter we redistribute the overheads that is allocated or apportioned to service department, to the production department. So जो भी overheads आपने allocate किए हैं या apportion किए हैं service department को, it will be reapportioned to the production department because service department are meant to provide services to the production department. कोई प्रोडक्शन नहीं होता है. So that's why we allocate or apportion the we reapportion the overheads of service department to production department. When talking about the methods, if the service department provides services only to the production department, then we do direct redistribution method. And plus, if they are providing services to each other, then reciprocal and non-reciprocal. There are three methods we'll be discussing in reciprocal, and in non-reciprocal, we'll be discussing the step ladder method. So I hope you guys are thorough with the concepts what I have discussed. Let me check. Sir, while redistribution, direct wages. See, Himanshu, I'll be discussing this part. Okay, now I want to address this query now only. Now, guys, सर्विस डिपार्टमेंट में कोई भी यूनिट्स मैन्युफैक्चर नहीं होते हैं. So what about the cost? See, what about the direct material cost and direct labor cost of service department? So the direct material cost of service department and direct labor cost of service department will be treated as overheads. Production, direct material, direct labor and direct expenses will form part of prime cost. But service department का direct material और direct labor cost अगर आपको दिया हुआ है तो it will be treated as overheads because it is to be reapportioned to the production department. So guys, do make a note of it that since no units are manufactured in service department, therefore whatever the direct material cost is, whatever the direct labor cost is of the service department, they will be treated as overheads. So I hope Himanshu, your query is addressed, sir, while redistributing direct cost, direct wages of. Yes, Himanshu, very good. I hope the query is resolved because few students also asked me. Abhay, Mr. Abhay, I hope your query is resolved. I hope Abhay, your query is resolved. Anupam Tiwari, costing learning strategy is when talking about this subject costing, it's more of logic based. So try to memorize the concepts rather than formulas. As I mentioned in previous batches also in the last lecture also, focus on concepts. Try to memorize the concept and apply these concepts while solving the questions. I assure you guys, you'll surely be able to clear the exams if you focus more on concepts rather than formulas. Apart from this, try to practice as much as possible. Try solving questions in writing. आप ट्राई कीजिए कि every day you solve few questions in writing. Don't do the sticking part that yes, this I have calculated, this I have calculated. Better prepare your own solution. It will help you a lot. It will improve your speed while writing exams because कई बार क्या होता है कि students are not being able to complete the costing paper. The only reason is paper lengthy नहीं होता है. The only reason is lack of practice. So try solving as many as possible questions in writing. जितने question आप हाथ से लिख के solve करोगे, it will help you while writing exams. It will help you to improve the concepts also, to memorize the concepts also, and it will help you to increase the speed of writing the solutions, etc., whatever it is. So try solving questions in writing as much as possible. You can refer past practice manual, past examination questions. It's available over internet. Past mock test papers, past RTPs. Try as much as possible. I mean, try solving as much as possible. I mean, try solving as much as possible questions of past exams, etc. So there is no alternate of hard work. Don't do ticking. Again, I'm repeating, in any subject, practical subject, don't do ticking. Try solving question in writing and focus more on concept rather than memorizing the formulas. Rest, I'm there till the last date of the sessions. So whatever the queries you have, I'll try my level best to address all your queries. Plus, we'll try to, my session will be more on concept based rather than solving the question on the basis of formulas. So don't worry, guys. Have some patience, practice, and I'll be putting a few questions in the coming session also. So to test that whether you are, thorough with the concept or whether you are thorough with what I'm discussing in these sessions. So that's it for the day. So reapportionment. Okay, let me address few more queries. Thank you so much, Yashika, for your compliment. Thank you so much, Yashika. Himanshu, hopefully your query is resolved. Again, there was one more student. I think it was Abhay, I think Abhay, hopefully your queries are resolved. That is, you are asking that, sir, why we are taking direct wages and direct material of service department. So I repeat again, guys, since no units are manufactured in service department, so whatever the cost, whether it is direct cost, whether it is indirect cost, it will be treated as overheads and it will be reapportioned to the production department. So guys, thank you so much for your time and patience. We'll be back day after tomorrow with the remaining part of the chapter. I'll be putting a few questions in front of you in the live session. So be prepared for it. Thank you so much. Enjoy. Have a great day. Yeah. Sir, I'm done.